Minecraft has made many mistakes over the years with regards to combat, world generation, and even mob votes, but if you were to ask Mojang what their biggest mistake ever is, it would probably come down to this one simple feature that most of us take for granted and don't even think about that much. That's because it's just kind of a given that Minecraft Java Edition allows you to play around 500 different versions of the games that have been released in the last 10 years. Want to play the snapshot that released on the 3rd Wednesday in September of 2017? Guess what? You can play that exact version right now, whereas Bedrock Edition allows you to play precisely one version, and that is the latest. What is the deal with this difference? Why is it so tragic? Allow me to explain one of Minecraft's biggest mistakes in today's video, because although the simplest answer as to why it doesn't exist on Bedrock can be answered by a Minecraft developer, as it has been done in this tweet, which is that it requires all devices to implement a version downgrading system for their software, something manufacturers are extremely unwilling to do as it's a mechanism for exposing patched bugs, and on some devices it can mean entry points to jailbreaking. Another approach would be bundling all versions into one executable, but then you've got a 200GB install for Minecraft code that 99.99999% of players will never use. And that is the explanation as to why you can version switch on Java Edition, which runs on PC, Mac, and Linux, and you can't version switch on Bedrock Edition, which runs on your iPhone or your Xbox One X or your Nintendo Switch, because those are very different platforms which of course have very different requirements for how software works. However, the interesting side benefit of this is it means that Minecraft Java Edition players have much more leverage about which version of Minecraft they play and about which features are added to the main game. Why is this true? Because Minecraft Java players can always pick which version to play, whereas if Bedrock makes a change, then good luck. What you have to do is you have to make sure you don't update your PS4 or your Android phone ever. You have to leave it disconnected from the internet, or you have to turn off those automatic updates, and you have to be very, very careful never to download one, and even then, you can never go back in time if you decide you don't like an update after it comes out. So this comes into all sorts of problems when it comes to speedrunning features. You might know that famously, a lot of the best speedruns from the console community came from people who just refused to update when they patched the Ender Pearl trading with piglins mechanic, which was an intended bug fix, but it was one the speedrunning community didn't like. But also, let's talk about features like capes, for example, or even a more perhaps spicy example. Minecraft has a marketplace, it has a interesting persona feature, and it has emotes that you can buy with real money. This is something a lot of people had outrage with. I imagine a lot of Java players would have had something to say if it had happened there. However, on the Bedrock Edition, when this happens, you accept it because it is built into the version of the game that you are now running. Whereas Java players, when something happens in the game that they're not very fond of, they're allowed to just say, nah, actually, I'll skip this one, and I won't play that Minecraft version. And this is famously true when it comes to, say, Minecraft servers, which obviously require all this infrastructure to be set up for a specific version of Minecraft, and those have an extremely strong incentive to stay in the most recent version, you would imagine. But if you look at these stats, which come in from minecraftservers.org, as you can see, of the Minecraft servers, the majority have not updated from 1.18 to 1.18.1, which is fascinating on its own level, but also there's 17% of servers still playing on 1.17, and then there's also 9% playing on 1.16, and a significant number of servers playing 1.12 or before. That's right, there are Minecraft servers that have not updated in the last 5 years, or even in crazy examples, have deliberately downgraded to versions 5 years ago, and so can avoid features like the Phantom, or can avoid features like the dual wielding mechanic, which Minecraft added in 1.9, which is famously hated. There are all sorts of famously hated Minecraft updates. Some servers even never updated to beta 1.8 because the hunger system was too much. Like, what's all this sprinting nonsense about there? There are all sorts of valid complaints about Minecraft updates that people had, and they were allowed to just go, yeah, I'm not upgrading to your version. And this is really great for players. It gives them way more customization over their game. However, it's a huge mistake because of the fact that it leads to a fragmented player base. When Minecraft releases an update for the Java Edition, they're not really releasing the update to all of its 30 million players or whatever. They're actually releasing that update to the number of players who decide to update to the latest version at any given point in time. Compare that to Bedrock Edition, where the only people avoiding updates are those without internet connections, or those who just forget to manually update the game, or just have chosen not to for a long time, and you realize the big difference there in how quickly they can roll out new features to new players, and that is where this big mistake thing comes from, and that's where the wider philosophy part of this video comes in, because there are two major ways you can function when making a product, right? You can make something that is one size fits all, to use a clothing term, or you can make something where people are allowed to infinitely customize to their own shapes, sizes, and needs, and for clothing, we'll just say that's clothes sizes and all sorts of dimensions, but even even within that, you know, like if you look at t-shirts, they just go small, medium, large. But if you wanted true customization, if you ever wanted a true tailor-fit shirt, or if you look at jeans, for example, there's dimensions for the width, but also for the length, I want to say. And then there's also like how tight those dimensions then cling to your body, whatever. There's a lot of complexity to clothing sizes, depending on the item of clothing you're looking at. Ever bought a hat and, you know, been asked your hat size? I have, and I was very confused by the question. Whereas if someone asks your t-shirt size, you don't go, the one that goes on my torso. And this is an interesting example about how we have different expectations for things in the real world. In the game development world, it is generally accepted by most games that, yeah, the one-size-fits-all model of like, these are the way the game works. There are some options and customizations, usually for accessibility or for different, you know, hardware options. But the thing that Minecraft did so differently in the Java edition is they said, nah, not only can you customize your skin to be literally anything you want, you just uploaded a file to the Minecraft website. That is still how Java edition skin switching works, by the way. As a Bedrock edition player, this blows my mind. In Bedrock, you do it from within the game. On Java edition, you have to either go to the website or you can do it from within the Minecraft launchers. There is a little skins setting where you can obviously switch between Alex and Steve, but then that's where you upload your own skin to. Very strange, very different in my opinion. I think that's wacky. Anyway, so you can customize your own skin, and also you're able to customize a whole bunch of settings with how far the game draws, whether items are seen as fancy or not, all these different texture and various differences to the game that really can alter it. And then also on top of that, you can choose which version of Minecraft to play. This is mostly meant for historical purposes, and that's why it's so interesting to look at just how many versions exist in Minecraft's past. In fact, as a fun aside, because you know what, these videos are allowed to have tangents on tangents on tangents, Minecraft has all these versions of the game from the days where Notch was just making a new version of Minecraft and pushing them out there to people who had paid. Some of these versions are basically lost to all time because they were uploaded once and then they were immediately replaced by the newer version, and there was no way to switch versions back in those days, so it was just lost forever. It's very interesting to me that this proves that game preservation is done much better using the new launcher, but still, you can go back in time and you can switch to any version that you like, and you can play these for whatever purpose you want. You can go back just to see what generation looked like back then. You can go back to see what Minecraft was like before the new combat. You can just relive your first version of Minecraft. You better believe that's something I've done a few times, including in the background right here. Wow, doesn't it look so old-timey? Isn't it weird that this was at one point the Minecraft we knew and loved and that got us into the game, even though it's so different to the Minecraft we know now? Yes, it is so interesting, but even more interesting than all of this, in my opinion, is the fact that you can use it to go way, way back to the earliest version of Minecraft that does exist. And when you see that version of Minecraft and compare it to today, it's kind of like seeing, I don't know, the original Legend of Zelda when compared to, you know, Breath of the Wild. It's kind of like seeing Super Mario Kart for the SNES and comparing that to the current day ones. Like, the same idea is there, but it's so entirely changed, and it makes you realize that Minecraft really is just a whole bunch of sequels combined into one game. And being able to look at that history, in my opinion, is something that makes it worth all of these pains about people going back to versions that potentially have serious security concerns, people being able to just ignore bug fixes if they don't like the bug that it fixed, or people, you know, being super, let's say, pressuring onto Mojang about features that they do not like being in the game. All of these downsides are worth the preservation and the ability to look at the history of Minecraft and see where it came from and what it came from. And although it is Minecraft's biggest mistake in a lot of their minds, I think that it's actually worthwhile. And that's before we mention the fact that it gives more power to the players. One of the very interesting asymmetries in every game that uses the model that Minecraft Bedrock uses is this fact of just, well, you can accept the game that you paid for has changed into something that you don't like, or you can not. You basically have no options in between, bar the ones I mentioned earlier, and this means that all sorts of consumer unfriendly practices, like developers who slow down the XP rates that you can get things at so that they can sell you XP boosts to take you back to where the game probably should be in the first place, like games that make it incredibly hard to get the things that they know everyone wants, but you know, they can obviously change this later, or even games like the GTAs of the world that slowly drip content into the game rather than giving you a whole batch at once. There are all sorts of practices that aren't great for you as an individual, even though they're great for the game developer. I'd even argue some of these have been put into Minecraft itself, i.e. the being able to emote there, the being able to sell skins, and the fact that we have Minecraft Java Edition sitting there and deliberately not taking all of these features is to me proof that yes, they know this is truth. They know that Minecraft as a Java Edition game, the original one, gave probably too much power to the players to avoid changes they didn't like, gave too much power to people who, let's be honest, they can have all sorts of wacky, weird reasoning to just deny a Minecraft update and to cause all sorts of issues that they then have to deal with later. Whereas Minecraft Bedrock is a community that exists and, that kind of follows rules in a more simple way. And this is where the deep philosophy of this comes from, not just in the fact that, like, ooh, is it better for humans to have choice versus not, but also in basically every aspect of life, we have trade-offs between where should the power exist for something. Should the power exist in all of the people individually, and should you be able to collectively decide how things work, or should it be that there are centralized figures that decide, actually, no, this is for the good of everyone. You might not see it right now, but eventually it will be. Obviously, in real life, we mostly exist around governments, which almost exclusively, with exceptions being places like Switzerland, which has 7 co-equal leaders, but most places are centralized to one person that ultimately does have a lot of authority over the rest. Do you think this is a good way to do that? And then also, what about every other relationship in your life? And I don't mean just real relationships, although that's true too, but what about work relationships? Like, should you, as a group of employees, have power over how, your place of employment works? Should you have power over how much your boss pays you, or should it be the other way around, where he offers you an amount and you go, okay, I don't like this anymore, and you back out? There are all sorts of systems we use, and we change this based on everything in the world. Like, we all agree that when you go to Subway and you want extra meat, you can't just say, nah, I'm not gonna pay you for that. I'm just gonna take my sub, I'm gonna pay the original price, and I'm gonna disagree with your idea of charging me for this thing that I'm taking. Whereas, the reverse is like, oh no, I want to do the work and I would like money. I would just like more money or less work for the same price. And the fact that everywhere in the world we come to a slightly different answer as to where should the power lie between, like, should one person be deciding for everyone, or should it be like everyone gets to make their own decisions and it's infinitely customizable? It's really, really interesting to me, and it makes me realize that either we're all dumb and we come to different conclusions all the time because we're just very arbitrary creatures, or if you want to believe that humans aren't evil or incompetent, which I'll admit is hard to do sometimes, then I think the conclusion you can come to is that, yeah, we do feel differently about every situation. The way you feel about Minecraft might be different to the way you feel about Subway, or which might be different to the way you feel about working somewhere. But I think this video is a useful reminder that, like, okay, we sometimes just look at the events and we pick a side based on how that should be. But I think what's important in all cases is there should be, power to everyone in a situation. Even when you have a centralized figure, maybe it's a good idea that you give all of the individual actors in that scenario, I guess people in a democracy, some power of their own right. And we do that with the forms of protest that we allow. Even when you have a situation like Subway, where there is one mad dictator, the Subway CEO, that can dictate that I should be charged an extra £1 for extra meat. It doesn't cost an extra £1 for that meat. That is far too much when compared to the ingredients. But yeah, you can use this in the reverse, and you can say, okay, sometimes we do have systems where everyone has too much power to decide, and we rain down on that too. I mean, if you think about, it is basically right now there is nothing stopping you from just going out and stealing someone's bike or phone, and indeed, I live in London, this happens all the time, and we have certain measures to counterbalance on that. We give you slightly less choice. We say, yeah, well, you can still steal phones. There's just a tiny chance you end up in the big metal box that I don't know what a prison is, I'm gonna be honest with you. I guess they're made out of concrete, probably. You might end up in the big concrete box. These sorts of things are ones that I think about all the time, and that is the key difference between the Minecraft Java community and the Minecraft Bedrock community. On Minecraft Java, the players have more power to effectively change and dictate the game just by their very participation in it or not. Whereas Minecraft Bedrock, you have to accept the features that come out in a much more ready way, and that is part of why there is such a difference in monetization between the two. Some of that can also be explained by, like, okay, well, they have to have a marketplace for all of the consoles and places where you can't download your own custom maps. Things like that, of course, you can talk into, but the wider question here is that, yes, these are this is one of the best examples we've seen in the world of literally the same game being developed in a place where the players have basically power and decision and agency, where players, if they don't like a bug being fixed, they can say, no, don't fix this bug. I mentioned before about the roof of the Nether, or ice boats, or quasi connectivity in Redstone that doesn't make any sense, but because the players say, nah, this is a requirement, we are taking this, the developers have to go along with it. The shareholders, the CEO, whatever power structure you want. Whereas Minecraft Bedrock introduced a widely unpopular feature, and what are you gonna do about it? And it's so interesting because sometimes the exact opposite happens. Sometimes there is a feature which sounds super unpopular on paper, but actually does add something in the long run. I personally do like the marketplace, for example. I do think that the crossplay between all the different editions, which was super controversial because they bundled it into Xbox Live. I'm fortunate. I like Xbox Live as a platform. I love that I can use my Toycat gamertag and account across all platforms, somehow including, by the way, the Switch and the PlayStation. I feel like there is all these sorts of benefits and downsides of each scenario, and that's what it ultimately comes to. Should humans have the choice to be perfectly individualized, or should we all be as close as we can in a collective? Because when we're a collective, we're easier to manage, and all sorts of wacky things can't happen otherwise. And when we're individuals, we make the best decision individually, but we lose out on some gain as a collective. Yeah, was this a video about Minecraft's biggest mistake? Or is it about humanity's biggest mistake, really? I don't know for sure. But I hope you all enjoyed the video. Remember to subscribe if you want to see more, because January is going to be filled with all sorts of weird ones, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.